Hey everyone, I'm back for my second video of two, even though ironically I'm probably going to post this video up first before the other one. Whatever. Um, but we'll be covering set 6 and patch 11.22 for Teamfight Tactics. So, big thing this new set, it's a new set, Gizmos and Gadgets. I'll just roll over a couple of the particular things. We have a new pass for people to pick up. That includes emotes, boom. You know how this works. You get new booms, new stuff, a couple new arenas built into it, some new little legends that you can get. One of the other big new things is the Chibi champs. You can purchase these individually for 1900 RP. I'll go ahead and play this video for everyone. Hopefully it They're cute, aren't they? Chibi champs. This is a good new addition, I think, for people who actually want to buy shit. Some new little legends. I'll just just quickly go through some of them. Won't talk too much about them, but if you want to get your new little legends on. Oh, what are these new ones? Oh, they did the music thing again, didn't they? Let's be clear, the music collab thing was the best thing they ever did. Some new arenas. I won't click on them, you can look through. Along with some bundles for them. I usually end up just getting the season pass and calling it a day, but if you want to get some of the chibis, you can get them in a nice bundle here. Ranked. So there's some new things coming to ranked. First off, there is going to is there going to be a reset? For a second, I thought there was. So they're just talking about the rewards here. If you finish gold or higher, you'll get a specific reward. If you in hyper roll, if you finish blue or higher, you will get a specific reward. All right, the new ranked season. From ranks of Iron to Master, you will no longer be demoted in rank for tiers. So if you're in like Iron 2, you can't go to Iron 3. You can only go up. Oh, my bad. Other way around. You can still get demoted within those divisions. For some reason, I had in my mind that it was aligned like that. You can't go from Masters down to Platinum. Once you hit Masters, you're always in Masters. But within that, you can always go down. I suspect the main reason for this is because a lot of people, once they hit that particular rank, they stop playing. If you ever actually look at some of the numbers of players within each division, you will find that there's a giant spike at 4 of each rank. So like Master 4, Gold 4, Plat 4. There's a big spike in people. That's people who hit that rank and just stop playing. They achieve their goal and they don't want to be demoted out. So this should change that. That said, it should be noted you could still be demoted out of Grandmaster, Grandmaster, and what's in between Grandmaster and Challenger. I don't think there is. Is there nothing between Grandmaster and Challenger? I guess there isn't. Um, yeah, there isn't. Grandmaster and Challenger will still allow for demotion. Which is fair, especially Challenger, because only an X number of players can be Challenger at a time. Everyone will start at Iron 2. Why? Why do they do this every time? They're still doing the 4 promotional matches, so you don't lose any LP for your first 4 ranked games. I don't know why that's needed if everyone's starting at Iron 2, but whatever. Hyper is being reset to 500. Hyper ranks always feel weird to me. There's a lot of players that are high hyper rank that don't actually feel like they know what they're doing. One of them is probably me. Double up. So not this patch, but the next patch for TFT. They're adding a co-op mode called Double Up, where you can send units and items to a partner's board and hop over and help them out if they're struggling. So they added a 2v2 game type, essentially. Something that I think everyone and their brother kind of thought that TFT needed was a co-op gameplay mode. So to finally get I understand why Hyper Mode came out first, but I think in hindsight this was probably more sought after. Hextech Almonds. So this is the big new mechanic for this particular set. So at stage 4-1, 3/3 and 4/5, you will have every player will have a list of 3 augments to choose from. There are 3 tiers of augments: silver, gold, and pristine, platinum, whatever. Higher than gold. And you'll be able to choose one of them, and you'll have that particular augment for the rest of the game. They vary between particular buffs to abilities and such of certain champion traits and classes to have a fawn. Which, by the way, the name of fawn has changed, but we'll get to that later. In general, from my understanding of how augments kind of work and how you're offered them, is that there are sets of... It's randomized, but it's randomized based on what you're playing. So certain augments will not show up if you're not playing certain compositions. So if you're playing a mutant composition, you're more likely to see a mutant-based augment come up. So that's something to know about the augments. And I'll go kind of more in depth in my thoughts on how you should be playing around augments, even if that's not how you choose to play, because I think augments allow for a lot of complexity, a lot of depth to the game, and there's basically a lot you can do to build your composition right now. Loot orbs, less Nikos from blue and gold, yay. I hate getting early Nikos. It drives me crazy when I get an early Nikos. Item changes. So a bunch of items, before I'll go through this list, a bunch of items have been reworked to kind of pull in a lot of what the Radiant items did. So the Radiant items often did something really cool and interesting for an item. But what they've decided to do was like pull some of that effect into the item. So, and some of the items just plainly got reworked because they weren't doing what they wanted. So Archangel Staff's a good example. So Archangel Staff, the way it was working before was that when you cast a spell, you gained AP based on your mana, and that was always awkward. It made the item pretty terrible on low mana champions and kind of busted on high mana champions. So they've changed it so now during combat you gain 20 AP every 4 seconds. So Death Cap starts off better, but after 12 seconds this starts to become better. Kind of simple, but in my opinion, not very interesting, but we'll see. Banshee's Claw. So, if you haven't heard me before, Banshee's Claw was, like, completely busted. It was such a good item. Really great item. But they've changed it so that way now the shield blocks damage and the effects of the enemy's first ability up to 600 damage. So if the enemy's ability does more than 600 damage, it only will block up to 600 damage. And then the shield will break. It also... Did they change how the stacking... Yes, stacking. So the stacking will increase this amount, but doesn't give you more shields. Because you could... And this was a real big problem, I think, in set 5.5, where you could have a Banshee's Call and a... the Radiant version of it, so you essentially had 2 different spell shields. It was actually kind of crazy, and you just never got hit with spells. Bramble, now that's armor. Yeah. At the same time, they reduced the AoE damage because this could get pretty high if you were targeted a lot. Deathblade has been reworked, so Deathblade, instead of giving scaling damage based on the amount of champions that you kill, or that die that you hit, it now grants a flat AD boost. I have thoughts on this. I don't like this change, and based off what I've seen, I think it inherently makes this item a lot worse. Essentially, this item is really only going to be effective on champions that have very low AD. But if you have a low AD, it means you don't do a lot of damage. Eventually there'll be charts with math that tell you which champions are actually okay to run Deathblade on and which ones you'd rather just have IE or Giant Slayer. But in general, I think don't make this item because you're using 2 swords to make it, and 2 swords can make something better. it's really unfortunate, this change. I don't like it at all. I kind of wish that instead they made Deathblade just like Dark Star for AD, where anytime a champion on the battlefield died, you just gained more AD, rather than being it on hit. I understand why they got rid of the on hit thing, particularly since Hurricane is being changed, which we'll get to in a second. But it's just kind of awkward. I don't like it. Dragon's Claw. They're lowering the cooldown on the fireball, which I like, because 1 second was actually kind of long, especially when stuff would like rapid cast on them or would hit multiple times. And they're increasing the max health percentage. They're decreasing the damage down to 18%, which is fair, because if you hit multiple times with all, yeah, awkward. Upping Giant Slayer threshold. I'm assuming that this is more of a balance thing rather than actually, like, this actually won't change much because there's just more health in the game. Hodge Omnivamp being reduced. Yeah. Yeah, this was pretty needed. This was getting over. This was pretty high. Gunblade no longer grants a shield for overhealing. Instead, will now heal lowest health ally. That is an interesting change. I haven't seen too many people make Gunblade in games. I think I would have rather kept the shield, but I like the idea here. I think the main issue is that this set kind of already has a lot of healing in it, so I'm not sure how useful a Gunblade would be in this set. Also, it doesn't heal itself. I think that was like really kind of the important part of Gunblade, is that you were really just healing yourself and making yourself stronger. You're not doing that anymore. Kind of awkward. Jewel Gauntlet taking the bonus, taking some damage out of the bonus strike and adding it to AP. That's fair. This should be an item that's made for mostly AP champions, and as we saw with Lucian last set, it was kind of, we kind of saw it a bit too much on champions that were more focused on AD. Or like any champion that worked both ways, where you could do AD or AP like Lucian, as I said. Quicksilver, so like I said, they kept the 20, I said in my previous video, they kept the 20% attack speed bonus on Quicksilver. This is a much better item now. I wouldn't be surprised if more people make this. I haven't seen a lot of games where people make it, but it is definitely a much better item. RFC attack speed boost, yay. Hurricane adds an extra 10 AD. That's to balance out. It doesn't do on hit effects anymore, which I don't think really matters too much, to be honest. I can't really think of a place where that's really relevant outside of like Last Whisper. Last Whisper was probably the one place I can kind of recall that's somewhat relevant. Shiv 15%. Who cares? Shiv is Crash. They're gonna have to rework Shiv again at some point because it doesn't do anything. Hyper roll changes. We still have armories, I believe. Yeah, we still have armories, but we don't have the radiant armories. Some augments will be disabled for hyper roll. Yeah, that's fair. Tactician movement speed decreased. No. I guess yeah, this is actually a problem in the carousel. You move really fast on the carousel. Armory timings, just adjusted armory timings. Did we not get one at 7? Oh, I guess it's because we get, yeah. Okay, so we get an augment at 3-1, an armory at 3-2, another armory at 4-2, 5-2 augment, 6-2 armory, 7-2 augment, and then armory. Okay, so the only thing that's awkward is going to be this 3-1, 3-2 phase. There's going to be a lot of shit that's going to be thrown at your face you're going to have to keep track of. Armories will... Okay, so they changed what kind of armories we can get. Okay, that's interesting. Huh. Econ Adjustment. Oh god, we did more. Is this just a hyper roll change? Okay, this is just a hyper roll change. I was like, oh god, we didn't fuck up the economy again. I don't think I could handle this game reinventing its economy again. Starting gold goes down to 2. That's actually a very good change. Starting gold being 8 was just like buy the shop. And as we play more and more of this game, buy the shop is not a good like strategy. It's not even a strategy. It's just do it every game. Buy the shop. So going down to a 2 gold start's actually pretty relevant, I suppose. So these are PvE rounds, so you just get gold from PvE. This was hmm. Total gold has been increased from. This feels like really weird to me that they would increase. Like the game is Hyperroll already plays a little too fast for my taste. So to just like add a lot more gold just feels awkward. It's something I haven't seen any Hyperroll games for set 6, so I'll have to play it to kind of give a full review of it, but I'm not sure how I feel about this. I like this starting change where we change the 8 gold to 2 gold. I think that's a good change. But the rest kind of like just adding more gold in feels awkward. Round time, reduce planning phase for non-armor, non-combat rounds. 25 seconds. I'm so dizzy already. At 5 seconds, at 10 seconds, late game roll downs. Okay. Sure. Balance changes. Yordle gives 2. This is actually a good change because you're not going to have as many rounds to build up your Yordles. And Mercenary based on Technician's health instead of loss streak. Oh, this is a lot better. This was one of the problems that I had when I played Draconic. Just like combining these two together. When you play Draconic, you just like didn't really have enough time for the eggs to like, even though the eggs hatched faster, it just felt like there wasn't enough time to actually put together a good composition. Like you just died before you actually built anything because you only can lose 10 rounds before you're dead. Well, max. You like usually lose about 5-6 rounds and then you just die. So this change is actually pretty good. I actually think this will be really helpful, especially this Mercenary dice one. This Mercenary dice one's actually kind of interesting. It might make Mercenary pretty useless, but it might actually make it kind of useful. And Tompkins gains twice as many stats. Yeah, that's fair. Might even need to be more. Might need to be 2.5. And that's it for the patch notes. So let's go through the overarching set. So like we kind of covered some of them as we went through here, through these patch notes. But let's talk about the overarching changes to this set. So as we said, the big new set things are the Hextech augments, the 2v2v2v2 game type, and the new chibis. New chibis, yay. I don't think I'm going to go through every single augment, but I'm going to kind of give you an idea of, from what I've seen, how you should think about augments. Your first augment should go one of 2 ways. I mean, there's also a third way, but I'll get into that. The main thing I want you to think of when you see your augments is think 2 things. 1, getting an economic advantage. If your first augment allows you to get a significant economic advantage, that should probably be your primary pick. You should seriously look to doing anything that will give you a significant economic advantage. 2, something that is incredibly utility. There are plenty of augments that can be used across multiple combinations of units, traits, classes, whatever composition you want to play. Kind of lean towards those on your first augment. And the third one is linear tunnel vision all the way. If you already have units, kind of have a comp already going in a direction, and you see an augment that says, my trait is broken, my comp will break the game, go. That is the way. That said, that's usually not going to happen on your first augment. That might happen on your second or third, but it's usually not going to happen on your first. Your first one, in general, you want to play something that's a little more utility, or something that's a significant economic advantage. So, like, one of the great examples of an economic advantage, there is a augment that makes it so every time you roll, you get 2 experience. Oh no, you get 1 experience. So it costs 2 gold to roll, and 1 of that gold will be fed back into experience. That is a kind of nutter. Like, you don't have to spend gold to level anymore. You get up to 50 gold and you're just rolling, and that's eco. Not only is it eco, you're actually going to have a stronger board through doing that. Um, that's a good trait to use when you're like going for 3-star 3 cost. Hell, even 4-star, even 3-star 4 cost. It's good to run. So that's kind of the idea of how I want you to think about your first augment. Think something that's going to give you a lot of utility, and think something that's going to give you a lot of eco. When you get to your second and third, if you get something that's going to work with a composition you're already playing and it's not going to be heavily contested, bang zoom. Um, Otherwise, eventually there's going to be tier lists for augments that people tell you need to play. But in general, I think what you're going to find is that you're just going to basically be playing a different game every time because of the way the augments just come out. Alright, let's go through the new traits. Academy. So I've seen a couple decent Academy compositions. The main thing is you have Lux and you have Yone, both of which will scale pretty well off having an Academy composition, but you need to have a front line. And I don't think any of these units are particularly well. Leona's a good front line. Garen's okay. Graves is meh. But you have you when you run an academy comp, you can either run Lux or Yone carry, and Yumi's pretty useful. So sometimes you'll be able to get up to 4 pretty easily, and 4 I think is kind of the magic number. 6 is just kind of overkill, but 4 is probably where it's at. Chemtech's super tanky. Chemtech's actually a really good trait because of how tanky your front line becomes. It gives your carry, who's Urgot, plenty of time to kind of run over things. I think in general, just getting up to 5 is usually good enough. But if you can hit up to this stupid ass regeneration, like, go at it, because you can do things like that this set with augments. But in general, if you run a Chemtemp comp, you're usually going to get up to 5 and have Urgot carry. 4, even having 4 is still pretty, or this 4 seconds, having the 3 Chemtech is pretty useful because of how tanky it makes your front line. Because it's 75% damage reduction for 4 seconds. That's a lot of damage reduction you're going to have on front line. Plus you get a health regen. It's kind of insane how much work this does. Also keep an eye on spats for this. Spats for this are interesting to say the least, particularly because of the attack speed boost. Clockwork. Clockwork scales pretty well in general. I don't think you're ever gonna run more than 4, and most comps can fit 2. So you're not gonna your comp's not gonna revolve around Clockwork, but usually you can hit 2, and sometimes you can get up to 4, depending on if you have what augments and what traits you have. It's also worth noting that all of these champions are actually pretty good. Jhin is a good carry, and Orianna, I believe, does a good bit of CC. Same thing with Zillion. Like, you can make this work. Cuddly, that's Yumi's thing. We'll talk about Yumi later. Enforcer. So I don't think I've ever seen anyone actually run Enforcer 4, but Enforcer 2 is pretty easy to hit because Fiora is a pretty good champion. You often will see these combinations of units in the late game. Caitlyn for sniper, Vi for sister. Fiora is a pretty decent carry, and Jace does all sorts of weird shit in the late game. So it's pretty common to see too. So they'll just, and what ends up being interesting is you would think this eats up your front line, but more often than not, I find because you've itemized your carry, you end up finding your carry actually has the most health. And it's really awkward to have your carry just get locked down for 5 seconds because it has the most health. That said, I think like this combination of units is a little too awkward to hit Enforcer 4. So unless you have some augment, which I don't think you would take an Enforcer augment, you're not going to hit this. Glutton, that's Tom Kench's thing. Talk about that later. Imperial. So what I've found with Imperial So Scion is a good carry, but part of the reason he's a good carry is because you can trigger Imperial. Um, I don't think Imperial 5 is that useful, but Imperial 3's 60% damage bonus for the Tyrant is pretty decent, particularly on Scion, who will nuke shit. Um, yeah, Scion can like waste half a board like with one alt, so I've seen it like kind of often that you see just kind of 3 Imperial run just to get Scion that extra damage. Merc is Fortune. It plays a lot like Fortune. It really is Fortune. Um, I've seen the pools of it. Essentially, the way it works is if you have 3 mercenary, it'll roll 2 dice, and based on the result of that 2 dice, it'll throw something in your chest. And when you win, you get all the shit in that chest thrown at you, and you get it for free. If you have 5, it's the same pool of stuff for 3, but you essentially have increased your loss streak by 3. So if you have if you have a 6 loss streak, but you have 5 mercenary in, the roll from that will come from a 9 loss table, which is a super high roll awesomeness table. And 7 has its own unique third dice roll that gives you just bonus loot every time you win. Um, from what I've seen, this is actually a pretty decent composition, particularly because of Gangplank. Gangplank does some pretty obnoxious shit. um, and this really isn't that hard to run. Don't be surprised if we actually see Mercenary be a pretty decent composition. Mutant, I don't know if it says on here all the mutant traits. Most of them are pretty good. So Mercenary, Mutant has a random trait from like the past of this game. Most of them I think are actually pretty playable. And don't even really change how you would play the composition. It changes your items a little bit, but doesn't really change much. In the end, your carry is always going to be Kaisa, and you're pretty much always going to run Mundo. And I think usually you run Malthazar. Um, Sometimes you can run a cog carry. You usually don't see Cho's kind of weird in this game. I don't think his stats are good enough for him to be a good carry, but I don't think I've ever seen 5 without an augment. But 3 is pretty common, I think, and not hard to run if you have a good augment. But there's only a couple augments that I don't think are worth the effort. I think the worst one is probably the cybernetic augment. That one's pretty bad. Scrap. Scrap is a good early game trait and kind of a terrible late game trait. And it takes a lot of thought to run a good scrap composition. Um, it's kind of, yeah, like I said, it's just kind of an early game trait, and some of the early game champions that it plays are just not very good. Like Ezreal is not very good, and Ziggs scales very poorly into the late game. Sister, so the thing about Sister is Sister actually makes Vi very good and makes Jinx kind of nuts. So I think anytime you play Jinx, you're always going to play Vi. So you're going to pretty much always have some sort of brawler twin shot composition when you run these two, just in general. Socialite. Socialite is an interesting trait. um, so my thought on Socialite: the first time you see a Socialite champion, you should buy it so you can figure out where the Socialite spot is. Because where the Socialite spot is will determine whether or not you can fit a Socialite into your comp and what kind of and how many of these you actually even want to play. So if it's a backline corner Socialite Hex, you might want to run both Taric and Seraphine to get this 5 mana for a Lux carry. Whereas if it's a frontline one, you might only just want to like run Galio and put a Scion in on that frontline hex. Kind of just like the idea here of like which directions you want to go. Also, we're noting Galio is a Colossus, so he takes up 2 spots on your comp. So in order to run 3 Socialite, you have to have 4 slots, or you run a augment that gives you a Socialite spot. So and getting the heal on damage done is okay too. The big thing you have to worry about is make sure you're scouting. The position doesn't change; it's always the same, and it's the same for everyone. So if you get a chance to scout where it is, that's handy too. But figure out where this is to decide whether or not you can just fit one unit in your team for this free 20 damage boost. Because if I recall correctly, Seraphine's actually a pretty good unit. Syndicate. The key thing with Syndicate is Syndicate 5. So Syndicate, you get 50 armor, 50 MR, and 25% armor vamp. But this buff will only go at 3 to the Syndicate with the lowest percent health. Whereas at 5, it goes to all the Syndicate champions. Why is this important? One of those champions is Shaco. Shaco reroll. So Syndicate Assassins is going to be a comp. It's just inevitable. Just the way Shaco reroll functions, he's always going to be like a great carry. And having a built-in 25% Omnivamp on Shaco, pretty good. It means you don't have to run a Bloodthirster on him if you run 5 Syndicate. So you just run 5 Syndicate with 3 other Assassins, boom, comp. Easy clap. That was easy clap. Not to mention the Kali's an Assassin. So you only have to actually run 2 others to get up to 4 Assassins. I mean, this shit's free, guys. Shit's free. Just take the money. Yordles. Don't be fooled by Yordles. So at the beginning, after each player's combat, a random Yordle is added to your bench for free. And at 6, all Yordle abilities cost 20% less to cast. Okay. I want to make a point here on Yordles. Yordles is really... So, you're going to see a lot of games where people just high roll to have all 3-star Yordles, and then they get the Vigars, and you see the crazy Moonfall animation, the shit falling from... I don't even know what to call that thing. That looks like it's going to make my computer cry when it happens. I don't think that's really the way a lot of people should be playing Yordles. Yordles, I think, is going to be an econ trait. Where if you play 3 Yordles, this is an extra gold to 3 gold every round. Every round. Remember Win Streak Fortune? That was a thing, where you won every round of Fortune for the 2 extra gold you got every round. In the early game, this is going to be pretty useful to try to get this extra gold. I believe I saw the numbers. For the most part, you're going to be getting the 1 cost. But if you already have them 3-starred, you're going to start seeing the 2 costs. I think the main thing people are going to need to do is like figure out how you can transition from Yordles into an actual comp, especially if you end up 3-starring one of these, and understanding that this is probably more of an econ trait more than anything else. Oh yeah, and there's your Yordle Lord. New traits. Arcanist. So Arcanist is kind of that Dragon Slayer comp and Dust trait that I always love, but the carry in it's obviously Lux and Victor. I don't really know what Arcanist compositions look like, to be honest. I assume you're obviously going to run 4, and if I recall correctly, Vex is really bad. So you're going to have like Victor, Lux, Malthazar, and one other. I think Swain. Swain can kind of frontline. Kinda. Assassin. So the main thing is you have Shaco carry. Akali's not really a carry, but she's good. Akali's really weird how she works. I can't really describe how Akali works. That said, Echo is nuts. Echo is actually nuts. Any assassin comp you play will play Echo. Lastly, I do want to talk about Twitch. Twitch... I don't think we've ever had a ranged assassin. So Twitch will jump into a backline and then like attack at ranged, which can be like really interesting in the early game because like nothing's gonna hit him. He's always gonna be like last alive because he's in like the most awkward spot you can imagine, your own back corner. So it's kind of weird. Bodyguard. The cool thing about Bodyguard, they get increased. They bodyguards have a taunt. This is pretty relevant for like frontline carries. Which I'm gonna be honest, from what I've seen, there aren't a great deal of them, but it is useful. I don't think like none of these are actually carries, but like the important thing is you have to understand like Leona Braum is just a good 2-unit frontline. Like you can just run this. This is just free. This is going to be a go-to frontline for most of this set, Leona Braum, because you just get the free 2 bodyguard and they can cover up like the entire front line. You can even like put them in back while they'll taunt an assassin. Like this is actually like going to basically invalidate having ZZ Rot this entire set. I don't really know what else to say. Bruiser. The interesting thing about Bruiser is that this goes to your entire team. I don't like think that's too relevant, but it is interesting. Otherwise, this is Brawler. Nothing too interesting to talk about. Challenger. I suspect Challenger is going to fall victim to Legionnaire from the previous set, where we're just getting all of this awesome attack speed, and all of the champions in this trait just do damage, and there's like nothing for frontline. There's just not enough good frontline units there. That said, the cool part is this dash to a new target after takedown. That's actually pretty useful. Being able to like move quickly across the battlefield for melee range AD champions is an incredibly good trait. So, like, I'll point to Fiora and Yone as being like good champions in this trait. Same thing with Kai'Sa's a bit different though. Kai'Sa's just benefiting from the attack speed. Doesn't really get the bonus from the dash to new target. Kind of does, but not really. Colossus, from what I've seen, Colossus isn't great. Outside of, like, you're not going to play 2, is what it comes down to. So just having 1 for the immune to CC is pretty handy. But you're generally never going to play 2. They could buff this up and you're still never going to play 2. I'm kind of surprised how often I've actually seen Colossus played, because you're using up 2 champion slots already. Enchanter. I wouldn't be surprised if later on we see Enchanter toned down a bit. The healing and shielding effects on some of these units that are that are going to be like played a lot is pretty high. Lulu is really good. Tarek is kind of probably the worst. Janna, they brought back set 2 Janna, which set 2 Janna, if you didn't play, was actually ridiculous. Just a huge AoE kind of CC. It's not even CC, it's kind of CC. Along with massive healing. And Oriana's a really good CC. I get the feeling we're going to see a lot of this tone down. Maybe not the magic resist. The magic resist is probably fine, but I think the healing and shielding is going to kind of become obnoxious really quickly. Innovator, from what I have seen, Innovator 5 isn't terrible. The bear adds a bunch of buffs to your composition that's actually useful. The dragon, on the other hand, like running, like the problem with dragon is that you're going to run Ezreal, and Ezreal's the worst champion in this set. Protector. I actually haven't seen much of Protector. I don't think anyone's really playing Protector. Part of the problem is, like, if you look at these champions, you have a 1 cost, a 1 cost, a 2 cost, and a 4 cost. So getting up to 4, not going to happen. You'll see 2. You'll see, like, Scion Blitz. But that's probably about it. I don't think anyone else is going to run a composition with any of these. That, and the shield doesn't stack, so you have to... It's kind of back to being, like, real awkwardness that Protector had after they patched it out. From set, what set was that? Was it set 4 or was it set 3? I think it was set 3. Scholar, Scholar's actually really good, but like the composition's awkward. Yeah, you'll find the composition you end up playing for Scholar is kind of awkward, but it's a decent trait. Sniper's the same as it was before. I think the main thing is that people have kind of already found out is that there's no reason to play 4 Sniper, like, ever. You're just going to play 2. That said, if you're going to play 1 Sniper, you should always play a 2nd. So, most people, from what I've seen, they end up playing Jhin and Caitlyn. Because the reason why you see Caitlyn see a lot of plays, because Caitlyn's ult usually kills something. So, as playing a 1-star unit that actually kills something is like, good. Jace, Twin Shot, there's damage in Twin Shot. The one thing to note about Twin Shot is that the 2nd shot does not proc a 3rd shot. So if you fire once and you get a twin shot to proc, that second shot will not proc a third shot. So you only are going to get 2 shots. It's called twin shot, not triple shot. That said, I have seen 4 come up occasionally. I think 4 is the stats that they have given the 4 here is actually probably pretty reasonable compared to the stats of 2. I'm not even sure 2 really does that much outside of like Jinx. It definitely doesn't do much for Urgot because of how Urgot attacks. But it definitely works for Jinx. Like, the thing with Urgot, the percent chance is more important to Urgot than the damage, while the damage is more important to... Well, actually kind of the other way around. The damage is more important to Urgot, while the chance is more important to Jinx. And those are going to be the 2 carries that you run with it. Well, you might have Gangplank in there for a while. Gangplank and Cog. But Gangplank's like basically melee range, and Cog is an artillery cannon. So, like, different units are going to scale off of this differently. So, like I said, the 70% chance is more useful for Jinx, while the 80 is more useful for Urgot. Alright. I'm going to skip talking about all of the champions and just kind of poke away at a couple of them that I've noticed get a lot of play and are pretty good. Twitch sees a decent bit of play in the early game. I think this reduction of healing is probably pretty relevant. Also, Ziggs isn't terrible in the early game, but he doesn't scale well at all. Blitz is Blitz. He's always going to be Blitz, forever be Blitz. Allies within units range prefer to attack Blitz range target. Yeah, Blitz is Blitz. I thought when I saw how they describe Katarina here that Katarina would be a good carry, but at 2 costs, it's always going to be weird. Cog's a good mid-game carry. He can carry a lot of good AD items. Lulu it's Lulu. Lulu's always good. I don't know how Lulu has been a really good champion throughout this version. The Wild Growth version was really good in set 4. Quinn, I believe Quinn's generally considered okay because he targets the highest attack speed and disarms. So I think in general Quinn is okay. Haven't seen much of Talon. Haven't seen much of Talon. I don't think Tristana's that great. Just kind of a trait bot. Trundle is okay. I think in general he's just kind of he's kind of a trait bot, but he doesn't he scales okay as the game goes on, but I haven't seen a lot of people just keep him around. Vi in general is not very good, but if you get Sister, this ult starts to hit the back line, and that's where this ult kind of starts to get pretty relevant. I haven't seen anyone play Warwick. I don't even know Warwick's any good. Zillion's not bad. The main thing with Zillion, hopefully if I click this he doesn't break. Oh, it did that. I didn't want it to do that. Yeah, this stun is actually like good along with the attack speed reduction, so Zillion's pretty good. Zyra is a very interesting champion. Do not be surprised if you see people run Zyra in a particular comps matchup, because Zyra's targeting is for an entire row with the most enemies and stuns them. That in some situations can be a pretty gigantic AoE effect. This is a unit I think to keep an eye on. Cho'Gath is either your carry or useless. Echo's ult is nuts. Echo is actually nuts. Just straight up absurd. It's a CC effect and a damage boost effect on an assassin. It's just crazy. Gangplank, the key thing is this. If the attack kills a champion, Gangplank plunders a gold. So every kill Gangplank gets with this ult gets 1 gold. And if I recall correctly, this ult can twin shot. You can twin shot this ult. Leona, yeah, Leona is one of the best frontline champs in the game. Shrug. Shrug. Sandra's okay. Malthazar, I think you'll see a lot because he does quite a bit here. So he provides a dot that reduces magic resist. So in like CC heavy spellcaster heavy compositions, this is pretty useful to have for running through a front line. Misfortune, same as last one. I don't think she's very good this set. Samira, I haven't seen too many people play carry Samira, which is pretty clearly what she's built towards. So, Shaco, it's the same as set 3. Shaco, it's nuts. It's good. Just play it. He'll blow shit up. Tarek's a kind of frontline healer, meh. Vex, from what I've seen, is pretty bad. I think a lot of people don't think Vex is very good and kind of needs to get buffed. Zac is insane. Zac is actually insane. This CC effect is like better than well, it's not better than Blitz, but it's almost better than Blitz. Braum, really good frontliner. Mundo, really good frontliner. Fiora is. I haven't seen carry Fiora yet, but I do believe she's a very good carry. But I think she just kind of. Like, you don't see it because a lot of people, when they play carry Fiora, could play carry Fiora, play carry Yone, who's probably better. So I'm going to keep an eye on carry Fiora and see how it works. Janna, it's set 2 Janna. It's really, this effect is really good. This knockback is a stun. It's a knockback, a stun, and a heal. It does everything. Jin, so this is a new Jin. He actually gains mana, and after he gains his mana, he pulls out the sniper rifle that does like a piercing shot for 4 shots. And 4-shot crits. He also has that passive for attack speed again, which he's clockwork. So if you have a second clockwork, he just gets more AP. He's not a good item for Rageblade. He's not a good carry for Rageblade though. Don't give him Rageblade. But he's your sniper carry of the set. Lux is your AP carry of the set. Orianna is actually really good. Really good CC'er that also provides a shield. Like, this is probably... Orianna and Janna are probably the 2 best utility champions in the game. And I believe they're both enchanters. So, like, just play both of them. Seraphine. Seraphine is kind of another one of these kind of supporting units. It's just a matter of figuring out which one's going to be the most useful. So you gain attack speed with Seraphine, you gain CC with Orianna, and with Janna you get like backline protection or the CC effect. Scion, Colossus carry, Urgot, twin shot carry. Just so you know, the way Urgot's ability works is he fires a shitload of bullets that I believe all trigger with twin shot and scale with AD and attack speed. So it ends up being like a significant amount of damage, but it's like numerically low numbers. Yone is a good carry. He clones himself, he kills everything, and heals based off the damage. Yone is probably going to be one of the premier like melee range carry, I think, depending on like how Fiora develops in the meta. Like, between Yone and Shaco, I think that's probably going to be your standard AD carries for melee range. Whereas Urgot and Jinx will probably... Urgot, Jinx, and Jin will be kind of the long-range equivalent. And Sion will just be weird. Sion's going to be weird every time you see him. Because I don't think he scales greatly off AD. I think he just scales greatly off, like, stuff. Just, like, not dying. Akali, like I said, I don't think... Akali is interesting because, like, she doesn't execute function. So you need to have, like, damage on the battlefield, and then Akali kills everything. Galio has, like, Volibear CC, but requires 2 units to play. And he's not a great frontline unit because he, like, flies off somewhere else. I've only really seen Jace do well in the frontline. I haven't seen him do very well in the backline. So, like, in the front line, he gains a shitload of armor. His ult gives him unstoppable and gives him a shield for 3s and does a bunch of he does a bunch of shit. And like in the front line, he's very good. In the back line, he plays more as a support. It's really kind of I don't think you ever play him in the back line because he's just too useful as a frontliner. And you're oftentimes just gonna have like better backline stuff anyway. Jinx. Jinx will be interesting to watch because I think Jinx works best off like weak front lines. So if your like particular front line isn't very strong, um, mostly because she does like damage to her own composition. So like Jinx is kind of weird, but I do think she's a better carry than Urgot. Kai'Sa is probably the premier carry of this set. I think Kai'Sa might be the strongest unit I've seen based off what I've seen off the PBE. So, kind of to explain how to build Kai'Sa and the way Kai'Sa works, every attack builds an extra rocket to Kai'Sa's ult, and then she'll ult and she'll send her rockets out evenly across all targets. It's basically evenly across all targets. She's not going to pick out a single target to launch all of them out. It's going to be spread across everything. And then she starts the process again where she attacks again, gains more rockets in the pool, flies away, fires them all off. So there are two important parts here. One is the dash away. So she gets away from being attacked. And this is, from what I've seen, a very, 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 very effective way to not take damage. But at the same time, when you start whittling down the number of units, like the number of missiles blasted at a single target will just kill it. So like 3 to 4 ults will blow through everything. That said, I don't think she scales greatly off Sojin as much as she does Rageblade. You want to get, if you're gonna play Kai'Sa, you really want to Rageblade. After that, just put like AP crap on her. Tahm Kench. Tahm Kench can get out of control pretty quickly if you get him early and he starts making items. If you start getting Tahm Kench to make items and like he gets out of control fast, your composition can like blow up fast. That said, I don't think he's actually that strong a unit. Where he's useful is just purely in this ability that allows him to just CC down a unit, deal some damage, and like maybe make this item, and then spinning out for the CC. It's not terrible, but there's like better stuff to play. Now, like I said, he kind of reminds me a lot of Orin from set 4, where if you start getting to this point here, where you're making items, like he becomes kind of a problem for opponents to deal with. Veigar, I don't think you're gonna like outside of like YouTube videos. I don't think you're gonna see Veigar too much. Like I said about Yordles, it's more about the eco that you get in the early game than I think it's going to be about making Veigar nuke shit from the sky with fury horns. Victor, I haven't seen Victor carry, but a lot of people have said that Victor carry is actually very good. I think the other thing to note is that he provides this utility of armor reduction for AD comps, but I'm not quite sure how that fits in comps. So I really just haven't seen enough of Victor played to tell you how good he is. Most of the time when I see a 5-cost carry, it's been Kai'Sa. That's just Kai'Sa's, and Tahm Kench, because Tahm Kench is amusing, but Kai'Sa is like super strong. The big thing about Yuumi is good. Just if you get a Yuumi, it's fine to just play Yuumi because of the CC. The CC is big. It's a pretty gigantic CC, and the bonus shielding is kind of handy. Not much else to say there. We talked about the item changes. Here's a list of augments. See if I can figure out some of the highlight ones. Calculated loss is not a bad one if you want to play loss streak. You can build up a shitload of gold very quickly and play out of your loss streak pretty early, but this doesn't scale very well into the late game. Alright. I don't think dominance is very good. That's not very... Hyper roll's not very good. Like, I'm just gonna point out which ones that I recall are pretty good and not very good. Phony Frontline's not very good. So, Pandora's items is actually kind of interesting. Um, when you have bad, like, because you can play around this. If you have an item component, you can constantly randomize it until you get the item component that you want. This allows you to basically make whatever items you want. Because if you don't want it, you can just put it on a champion on your bench. Well, I think it actually does. Does it rotate champions on your bench? It's not worded to do that, and I've only seen it done once, and I didn't see him put it on it. It just kind of clean mind. He just had all his items on his champions. Yeah, in general, you could play around this to get your items randomized to be what you want. So I think it's actually a pretty strong one, but not very strong in the end game when you have all your items already made. Ascension is good, but only if your comp lasts that long, and 15 seconds is way too long. Knife's Edge is actually very good. This AD adds up very quickly. This is a lot of AD to give a front line. Cyber's bad. Yeah, unfortunately, the Cyber's not good. So featherweights, if I recall correctly, is like very good on like a Kog'Maw carry. If you pick this, you kind of are forcing yourself into a slow roll or hyper roll, because you're just always going to run these champions as your carries. That said, you don't have to run them as your front lines. You can advance to play front lines and just have 1 and 2 cost carries. Just kind of pointing that out to people. Stand United is actually pretty good, but Stand United 1 is pretty weak. Feel the Hunt's awful. The only time this is good is if you, like... It's not good. And then you get to the unit-based traits. Depending on what you're playing and how the composition's running will determine whether or not you actually want to play those. Stand Behind Me is actually nuts. This is actually this is actually crazy. You can basically make a carry, like, not take damage because of this. Like, this is a huge armor bonus to the champion that's behind your bodyguards. This is like one of the more stronger ones. I think we'll get a nerf eventually. Chemical Overload I've seen played a lot. The big thing is that 30% of Chemtech's health, when your health starts to get to like 1200, that's 400 damage when you die to all enemies within 2 axes. It ends up being a lot of damage if you have a bunch of Chemtechs. Dual role is not very good, because like your Tyrant's always going to be like... You don't really ever need your Tyrant to be more than one champion. Oh, so small. If you're playing Yordles, you should always take this. If you're actually gonna like play for it, if you see this, you might end up thinking about playing Vigar. 35% dodge chance across like 6 champions is actually like absurd. Rich get richer. If you're high rolling, it's okay, but like the moment you lose your win streak, you're gonna be mad you pick this. Spending wisely is very, very good. This is a very, very good. This is very, very good. Like, this turns all your refreshes into EXP. Like, this is really, really good. So Clear Mind is also pretty good. It's actually an eco trait. It doesn't look like an eco trait. It's an eco trait. Essentially, what's going to happen is you need to like be the best roller in the history of rollers to play this comp. You're going to want to like hit a composition that's pretty strong pretty early, and then just empty your bench. And then, if you can, enhance things, make your composition better, and empty your bench before the end of every round. And what you'll find is you're going to get a shitload of eco. off of this, because you're not going to be spending like any gold on EXP. And you're going to be like sitting 80 gold, level 8, ready for that roll down, and it'll be glorious. But I'm going to say this is an incredibly difficult way to play the game. Woodland Charm is like kind of busted in the early game, but in the late game it falls off because it excludes items. March of Progress. I've seen people use this before. It looks good. It's really. So I'm not gonna tell you it's terrible. What you find with this particular perk is that it's good for like hyper rolling for a like 3 cost or 4 cost. Just doing a hard roll down to get 3-star on a 3 cost or 4 cost. But like to play around this fact that you can't put gold into leveling is going to be really awkward really quickly. Because there's a point where your opponents are going to scale so much harder than you. Trade sector is trade sector. Play your rerolls with it. Sunfire Board is good. I think this one's trash. I think a lot of people don't realize how trash it is. Free item. Again, Knife's Edge, really strong. Exiles is actually very good, but what you'll find in the late game is that it's pretty hard to position. So like when you're at like level 6, level 7, it's not terrible, but when you start trying to get to like level 8, level 9 and trying to position correctly for exiles, it becomes really hard. Featherweight, same as what I said before on featherweight. Built differently is crap. Stand United is good. A lot of what happens in this particular set is you end up with a lot of really awkward compositions that like just aren't straight linear. You end up with a lot of like 2s, 3s, and 4s. So Stand United 2 can stack up quickly when you start getting like 8 traits active. Titanic Force. Actually, I've never seen this one. I have never seen that one. Makeshift Armor seems okay if you run a lot of frontline units, but I don't think you're going to run a lot of frontline units this set. I think this set's going to be like a very small frontline, a couple carries, and a lot of utility champions. Thrill the Hunt's crap. Spellblade is awful. Do not play Spellblade. This is literally trash. The emblems. I keep an eye on this one because like 2% health regen if you get something like a Warbogs is actually pretty strong. Yay, blow things up again. This is actually crazy. Because in general, your late game comps are, I think in general, just like always going to have enchanters. I think a majority of comps in this game are going to run 2 enchanters. Janna, Oriana, some Seraphine, some combination of those 2 units. So, like, an attack speed boost for the rest of combat? Come on. That's insane. What? I'm not even going to talk about that one. Sharpshooter is actually pretty good. This is essentially an extra 40% damage that gives everything a hurricane. It basically gives everything a 40% damage hurricane for twin shot. Like this is actually like really strong. I actually do recommend taking this if you're going to play like an Urgot carry or Jinx carry. Now for the tier 3, the prismatic ones that kind of just nuke the game. In general, most of these are just like always good. And a lot of them are going to be good situationally. So for example, like High Roller, if you're sitting on 7 of a 4 cost and you pick High Roller, you're going to have a good day. Portable Ford, yeah, that's good. Item grab bag here has 2 extra items. This one's not that good. New recruit, yeah, I'll take a free fawn. Yeah. Golden Ticket. Golden Ticket is probably one of the best econ traits in the game. If you get golden ticket, like on your first augment, which is pretty rare, it's pretty rare. This is one of the best things to get, and you should, in general, think about doing a like hyper roll with. I wouldn't even think of slow rolling. I would straight up hyper roll if I got this. Level up, yeah, level up's good, especially in the early game. Getting that extra 4 XP in the early game, pretty good. I've actually never seen this one. High-end shopping. Get you an extra 1 level higher. Let me think of that. So I guess that means you could just like, that actually opens up the game a lot. It's also like not bad to have in the late game where you can just sit on 8 or 9 and just roll down from there. Yeah, it's not bad. Oh god, there's a featherweight 3. Oh, there's a knife edge 3. Yeah, knife edge is incredibly strong on AD. Like even if you're running like an Urgot carry, you can still put him in the 2 front lines for the AD. It's nuts. They add the double, like when you start seeing these doublers, some of the traits like that's very good on, and some of the traits that's not very good on, and you're really not going to know until you play the game more. I need to see this one. This sounds awesome. Oh, that's interesting. So that gives you like 6 additional hexes to play with. I don't know how useful. I guess if you got like a near corner hex, you could take this and have like a whole AP comp built around it. I guess that seems okay. All right. That's about it. It's really hard to say what this set is going to look like because of these all of these augments. Every game is just going to be different and weird and interesting in some way or another. But I think in general, the rules of how we build compositions this set haven't really changed. I think you're going to have your slow roll comps for 3 cost carries. There is plenty of 4 cost carries in this set between Fiora, Jin, Lux, Yone, Urgot, Sion. Like there are plenty of 4 cost carries to run this set for a variety of different playstyles, and there's enough to transition into 5 cost carries for. I guess Akali can carry maybe, but Jace can carry, Jinx can carry, Victor can carry, Kaisa can carry. Um, but what is kind of probably noticeable is that the front lines are kind of iffy this set. It's pretty clear Braum plus Leona is one of the better front lines to play, and then after that you basically have like Chemtex and Brawlers are the other decent front line you can play. So we'll see where like the front lines end up looking this set, because I think a lot of people are kind of struggling to figure out what a front line looks like this set, because there's a lot fewer frontline units than there's been in previous sets, and there's a lot more utility champions than there have been in previous sets. Um, but that's kind of it for my review of set 6. I'll probably try to get. I want to get some games in this weekend, but I might not because I want to play some Iron Banner on Destiny, so I might just limit myself to playing Saturday night for TFT on this new set. But if I feel like I've gotten far enough on IB, like prior to Friday, which probably won't actually happen, I'm probably gonna play IB all Friday. Um, but I'll stream some games on Saturday and play a bunch on next Tuesday, and I should be good to play a bunch after that. So I'll get some games on this patch, but they probably won't be up for a few weeks. So I should have ended the recording a lot earlier. Anyway, I hope y'all enjoyed this review. I'll see y'all around. Peace.